The vast armada of the Vornath Imperium hung in high orbit around Earth like a necklace of blackened steel, thousands of warships blotting out the stars with their angular hulls and pulsing crimson energy shields, their commanders confident in the overwhelming superiority that allowed them to subjugate dozens of worlds over centuries without ever facing meaningful resistance. And now they had come for Sol, the primitive system whose inhabitants still relied on chemical rockets and fission, power while the rest of the galaxy harnessed zero-point energy and faster-than-light drives. The Vornath High Admiral Creshval stood on the bridge of the flagship Dominator's will, his forearms folded behind his back as he gazed at the blue-green planet below, his mandibles clicking in amusement at the frantic radio chatter emanating from human defenses, primitive electromagnetic signals begging for mercy or issuing futile threats that the translators rendered as little more than animalistic growls. He turned to his tactical officer and issued the order to begin the orbital bombardment that would soften the surface for ground invasion, expecting the operation to be completed within a single rotation of the planet. While far below in the fortified bunkers beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Admiral John Harlan watched the same armada on holographic displays, his weathered face set in grim determination as he coordinated with fleet commanders across the globe, knowing that the public fleets of destroyers and carriers humanity had shown to the galaxy were merely decoys built to outdated specifications deliberately leaked to alien spies years earlier, and now those spies had reported back exactly what humanity wanted the Vornath to believe, that Earth possessed only a handful of barely space-worthy vessels armed with crude kinetic projectiles and early fusion warheads. Harlan nodded to his aide Captain Lisa Brooks, who relayed the final confirmation codes to Hidden. Facilities scattered across the solar system, from the dark side of the moon to the asteroid belt, and even the Orc cloud, facilities that have been constructed in absolute secrecy over decades using automated drones and stealth technology reverse engineered from the first alien probe that crashed in Roswell back in 1947, technology that humanity had kept hidden while pretending to be technologically stagnant. And as the first Vornath plasma lances began to heat Earth's upper atmosphere, turning night into day over the Pacific, the true human response began. Deep within the lunar regolith massive hangar doors irised open, revealing sleek black vessels unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Ships built around principles of Vornath could not even conceive because human physicists had taken a different path after discovering quantum entanglement effects that allowed instantaneous communication and manipulation across arbitrary distances. Ships equipped with gravitic impellers that drew power directly from the fabric of space-time rather than carrying bulky reactors, and as these shadow fleet vessels accelerated silently toward the Armada at fractions of light speed that should have been impossible without inertial dampening, their hulls shimmered with fields that bent light and sensors alike, rendering them invisible to all known detection methods. On the Dominators, where the sensor officers reported anomalous gravitational fluctuations, but dismissed them as artifacts from the planet's primitive fusion tests until the first Vornath cruiser simply ceased to exist, its shields collapsing inward as though crushed by an invisible hand, and its entire mass converted to energy in a perfect sphere of white light that expanded silently in the vacuum. Creshval demanded explanations as more ships began to vanish in similar fashion, entire battle groups disappearing within seconds without any detectable weapon discharge, and then the human counterattack truly revealed itself. When the Shadow Fleet decloaked in perfect formation surrounding the entire armada, thousands of vessels materializing where sensors had shown only empty space, their prows opening to reveal emitters that projected focused gravitic shear planes, blades of warped space-time that sliced through Vornath shields as though they were tissue paper, cutting capital ships in half with clean precision and leaving the severed sections to drift apart while secondary explosions consumed the interiors. Panic spread through the Vornath command channels as admirals who had never known defeat issued contradictory orders, some demanding retreat while others called for concentrated fire on the suddenly visible human ships. But the human vessels danced through the chaos with impossible agility, their gravitic drives allowing instantaneous vector changes without regard for inertia, dodging plasma volleys that moved at merely light speed while returning fire, with weapons that operated on principles of direct space-time manipulation, compressing enemy ships to singularities or expanding their internal volumes until holes burst from within, and all the while human commanders maintained strict fire discipline, targeting military assets exclusively while broadcasting surrender demands on all frequencies in perfect Vornath language. Demands that were ignored at first out of pride, but gradually accepted as the Armada's numbers dwindled from thousands to hundreds in less than an hour, back on Earth. President Maria Gonzalez addressed the world from the secure Situation Room, explaining to stunned populations that the decade of apparent technological stagnation had been deliberate deception, that humanity had chosen to hide its true capabilities while studying captured alien technology and developing entirely new paradigms of physics that the galaxy's standardized education had blinded other species to discovering, paradigms that allowed humans to build weapons and drives of terrifying efficiency using resources that other civilizations considered worthless, like the abundant heavy metals in the asteroid belt that serve as perfect catalysts for gravitic field generation. And as the last Vornath dreadnought transmitted its unconditional surrender, Admiral Harlan allowed himself a small smile while reviewing the after-action reports showing 0 losses on the human side. The Shadow Fleet returning to their hidden bases as silently as they had emerged, leaving the survivors of the once mighty Armada to limp home with tales that would shake the foundations of galactic society. Tales of a species that had played weak for generations only to reveal itself as something far more dangerous when finally provoked, a species whose patience and cunning had allowed it to develop advantages that no amount of conventional superiority could overcome. And in the weeks that followed, alien ambassadors from neutral worlds arrived in Sol under heavy escort, begging for audiences and offering treaties on terms humanity dictated, while intelligence reports confirmed that the Vornath Imperium itself was fracturing under the weight of defeated admirals and populations demanding answers for how their invincible fleet had been so thoroughly crushed by supposed primitives, all because humanity had understood something the galaxy had forgotten, that true strength sometimes lies not in displaying power, but in hiding it until the perfect moment, a lesson the survivors of the Armada would carry for the rest of their lives as they looked up at unfamiliar stars and wondered if another quiet species somewhere was doing the same thing, waiting patiently while the arrogant marched blindly toward their doom. In the aftermath of the battle that came to be known across the galaxy as the Soul Shattering, the surviving remnants of the Vornath Armada limped away from Earth's orbital space under strict human escort, their once proud vessels trailing atmosphere and debris, while emergency beacons broadcast surrender codes on every frequency. And Admiral John Harlan stood in the command center deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, reviewing the incoming data streams from the Shadow Fleet, his eyes scanning reports that confirmed not a single human ship had been lost or even seriously damaged during the engagement, a testament to the decades of careful planning and technological leaps that had remained hidden from galactic observation. While Captain Lisa Brooks coordinated the secure communications with the lunar and asteroid bases, ordering them to maintain stealth protocols even now, because humanity knew this victory was only the beginning, and that news of the defeat would spread rapidly through the galactic networks, prompting reactions from other powers who might see Earth's sudden revelation of strength as either an opportunity for alliance or a threat to be eliminated before it grew further. On the bridge of the crippled dominators, while High Admiral Creshval sat in stunned silence as his remaining officers compiled casualty figures that showed over 80% of the invasion force destroyed in less than 2 hours, numbers that defied every tactical simulation the Imperium had ever run against primitive species. And when the human escort vessels transmitted a demand for the Admiral to prepare for direct communication, he could only comply, his mandibles trembling with a mixture of rage and fear as a holographic projection materialized, showing Admiral Harlan's calm face, speaking fluent Vornath, with an accent that suggested years of study. Harlan informed Creshval that the human forces would allow safe passage for survivors on the condition that they carry a message back to the Vornath homeworld detailing exactly what happened and warning against any future aggression, because humanity had no desire for conquest, but would respond to any further provocation with even greater force. And as the broken fleet jumped to hyperspace under human monitoring, President Maria Gonzalez prepared to address not just Earth, but the entire solar system, including the hidden colonies on Mars and beyond Europa, where millions of humans had lived in secret for generations, mining resources and building the infrastructure that supported the Shadow Fleet. Her speech broadcasts on all channels explained how the first contact with alien probes in the mid-20th century had revealed the existence of a vast and hostile galaxy filled with empires that routinely enslaved or exterminated species deemed inferior, leading Earth's leaders to embark on a grand deception playing the role of a divided backward world obsessed with internal conflicts, while secretly unifying under a global shadow government that poured resources into understanding and surpassing the captured technology, developing entirely new branches of science based on human intuition and creativity that the more rigid galactic education systems had overlooked. Branches like direct spacetime curvature manipulation and quantum vacuum energy extraction that allowed ships to operate without detectable power signatures or exhaust plumes, making them perfect for ambush tactics. And in the days that followed, neutral trading vessels from species like the mercantile Kalans and the Scully Mirrans began arriving in Sol under flags of truce, their captains requesting permission to establish diplomatic relations and offering advanced medical technologies or cultural exchanges in hopes of gaining favor with the newly revealed power. While human diplomats led by Ambassador Daniel Carter met them aboard neutral stations in the asteroid belt, carefully vetting each offer to ensure no hidden surveillance devices or subversive elements were introduced. Carter's team included scientists like Dr. Elena Ramirez, who analyzed every proposed trade item down to the atomic level, using tools far beyond what the visitors expected. And when one Kalan trader attempted to smuggle in a neuroparasite designed to influence human decision-makers, the attempt was detected, immediately leading to the entire delegation being quarantined and interrogated with methods that extracted truth, without pain, revealing a plot sponsored by a rival empire fearing humanity's rise. This incident served as a stark lesson that trust would have to be earned slowly, and that humanity's hidden advantages extended to biological and information security as well. Back in Vornath space, the returning survivors were met with disbelief and outrage as Imperial propagandists tried to spin the defeat as a temporary setback caused by treacherous human trickery, but leaked censored data and personal testimonies from high-ranking officers painted a different picture, one of overwhelming technological disparity that shattered public confidence in the regime, leading to riots on multiple core worlds and demands for the Emperor's abdication, while military factions began plotting coups to install leaders who would seek peace rather than revenge. And as these internal conflicts escalated, human intelligence assets embedded in galactic networks, using hacked communication, relays monitored the situation closely, reporting back to Harlan and Gonzalez that the Vornath Imperium was likely to fracture within months, creating a power vacuum that other species would rush to fill, prompting discussions in the human high command about whether to intervene, selectively supporting moderate factions that might become allies, or simply allowing collapse to serve as a warning to others. Meanwhile, everyday life on Earth began to change as the truth emerged. Populations that had lived in fear of orbital bombardment now celebrated in streets from New York to Tokyo, while governments revealed the existence of the Shadow Program and began integrating the hidden technologies into civilian use, promising an era of abundance with unlimited clean energy and advanced medical treatments derived from the same principles that powered the Shadow Fleet. Young engineers and scientists flocked to newly opened academies where the true history of human advancement was taught, inspiring a generation to push boundaries even further. And in hidden shipyards across the system, construction began on new classes of vessels, incorporating lessons from battle with enhanced range and firepower designed not for conquest, but for defense of an expanding human sphere that now included plans for interstellar colonization, using drives that could reach nearby stars in weeks rather than centuries. Ambassador Carter transmitted the first formal human declaration to the Galactic Assembly, a body that had previously ignored Earth's application for membership, stating that humanity was now open to peaceful relations on equal terms, but would respond to any aggression with the full might demonstrated against the Vornath, warning that the soul shattering was merely a fraction of what could be unleashed if truly provoked. This message sent shockwaves through the assembly halls on the neutral station of Pax Prime, where delegates from hundreds of species debated frantically about how to approach the new variable in Galactic. Politics, some advocating immediate alliance, others calling for preemptive strikes that were quickly voted down when simulations based on Vornath data showed catastrophic losses for any coalition foolish enough to try. And as months turned into years, the galaxy began to adjust to a new reality, where humanity stood as a silent guardian at the edge of known space, its true strength still only partially revealed, holding secrets that ensured no one would ever underestimate the blue planet again. Secrets guarded by leaders like Harlan, who retired to a quiet farm in Colorado, knowing his work had secured peace for generations, and by Gonzalez, who guided humanity's cautious steps on the galactic stage, ensuring that the lessons of patience and preparation would never be forgotten. While far out in the orc cloud, Sentinel stations watched for any sign of renewed threat, their sensors tuned to detect even the slightest hyperspace ripple, ready to summon the shadow. Once more the galaxy ever forgot the price of provoking the sleeping giant that had finally awakened. As the galaxy reeled from the implications of humanity's decisive victory over the Vornath, a new and far more dangerous coalition began to form in the shadowed chambers of Pax Prime, the neutral station that housed the Galactic Assembly, where delegates from the three most powerful remaining empires, the cybernetic hive mind of the Zorath Collective, the energy-based entities of the Lumerian Concordance, and the ancient reptilian hegemony of the Drakon Sovereignty, met in secret sessions, closed even to their own subordinates, their representatives calculating that a single upstart species allowed to retain such disruptive technology would upset the delicate balance of power that had maintained relative peace for millennia, and so they drafted the Containment Protocol, a unified declaration that labeled humanity as a Category 9 existential threat, requiring immediate quarantine and disarmament by force if necessary, with fleets from all three empires already mobilizing under the guise of joint exercises near the border regions closest to Sol, while human intelligence operatives embedded in trading hubs and listening posts intercepted fragments of these communications through quantum-entangled relays that allowed instantaneous decoding of encrypted channels no matter the distance, alerting Admiral John Harlan's successors, now led by the newly promoted Fleet Admiral Marcus Hale, who had served as Harlan's tactical officer during the Sol Shattering and president. Maria Gonzalez's administration, now in its second term with Vice President Daniel Carter elevated to Secretary of Extraterrestrial Affairs, to the brewing storm, prompting a series of emergency meetings in the expanded command facilities beneath Geneva, where representatives from all human colonies, including the thriving underground cities of Mars and the orbital habitats around Saturn, gathered virtually to debate response options ranging from preemptive diplomacy to immediate military mobilization, ultimately deciding on a dual-track approach of open dialogue backed by quiet preparation in case talks failed. And so Ambassador Elena Vasquez, a seasoned diplomat with decades of experience in cross-culture negotiations on Earth, was dispatched to Pax Prime aboard a newly unveiled diplomatic cruiser Aurora's Dawn, a vessel outwardly conforming to galactic standards but secretly equipped with the same gravitic defenses that had proven invincible against the Vornath, accompanied by a small escort of Shadow Fleet scouts that remained cloaked in hyperspace shadows along the route. While back in Sol, the shipyards worked around the clock, expanding production of the advanced vessels using automated factories that could replicate components at exponential rates thanks to self-improving AI systems designed with strict human oversight to prevent any singularity risks, turning out hundreds of new warships each month that dispersed to fortified positions throughout the system and beyond, and newly claimed resource-rich exoplanets and nearby systems reached through short-range gravitic jumps. And when Vasquez arrived at Pax Prime, she was greeted with cold formality by the Assembly Presiding Council, who scheduled her presentation for a full session attended by over 500 species, many of whom viewed humanity with a mixture of fear and envy after the flood of sensor footage from the Vornath survivors had circulated on underground data markets, showing the terrifying efficiency of human weapons. During her address, Vasquez spoke calmly and directly, outlining humanity's desire for a peaceful coexistence and offering to share certain non-military technologies, like advanced medical nanites and unlimited energy systems, in exchange for mutual non-aggression pacts. But the coalition representatives countered with demands for complete disclosure of all military capabilities, submission to galactic oversight of human research, and severe limitations on fleet size, terms that Vasquez politely but firmly rejected, stating that humanity had learned the hard way that trust must be earned and that any attempt at forced compliance would be met with resistance. News of the failed negotiation spread quickly, prompting the coalition to accelerate their plans, and within weeks a combined armada numbering in the tens of thousands began positioning itself along the neutral zones adjacent to human-claimed space, broadcasting ultimatums that Earth had 30 standard days to comply or face blockade and subsequent intervention. Ultimatums that President Gonzalez answered in a galaxy-wide broadcast from a newly constructed orbital platform Unity station above Earth, declaring that humanity would never submit to threats and that any incursion into Sol or its colonies would be considered an act of war with consequences far beyond what the Vornath had experienced. While behind the scenes Fleet Admiral Hale orchestrated Operation Veil Lift, the systematic revelation of forward operating bases humanity had quietly established in unclaimed systems over the previous years, using stealth probes to map and fortify asteroid fields and gas giant moons with automated defenses, including gravitic minefields and remote-operated drone swarms capable of engaging enemy fleets long before they reached core human territories. And as the deadline approached, the Coalition Armada jumped into hyperspace on a vector towards Sol confident in their combined technological advantages of Zorath with their adaptive viral weaponry, the Lumerians with their phase-shifting energy forms that could pass through conventional shields, and the Drakon with their massive bioengineered dreadnoughts grown, rather than built each the size of small moons. But the moment their forward elements emerged near the Pluto relay, they triggered hidden sensors that instantly transmitted alerts through quantum links, activating the first layer of defenses where thousands of cloaked gravitic shear drones materialized, slicing through the scout vessels before they could report back, leaving only expanding clouds of ionized debris. And when the main force arrived days later, expecting an easy push through the outer system, they found themselves entering a kill zone of overlapping fields, where space-time itself was weaponized currents of compressed gravity pulling ships off course into pre-calculated collision vectors, or suddenly increasing local inertial constants, until structure integrity failed under the weight of their own mass. All while human commanders monitored from distributed nodes that no single strike could eliminate coordinating responses with precision that made the Coalition's joint command structure seem sluggish and disorganized. The Zorath attempted to deploy their viral nanites only to discover that human electronic systems were hardened with quantum encryption and biological components protected by engineered immune responses derived from studying thousands of alien pathogens over decades, rendering the attack useless. The Lumerians phased into energy states to bypass physical barriers, but found their cohesion disrupted by carefully tuned gravitic pulses that forced recombination into vulnerable material forms where kinetic harpoons could impale and drain their plasma cores. And the Drakon bioships regenerated from damage at impressive rates until human scientists deployed counteragents designed specifically from genetic samples acquired through earlier trade interactions, agents that caused uncontrolled cellular division, leading to the massive organisms literally growing themselves apart from within. Panic spread to the Coalition fleets as losses mounted, without a single human vessel, yet revealing itself the attackers unable to target what they could not detect or lock onto while their own formations disintegrated under relentless invisible assault. And only then, when the Armada had been reduced by half to the main human fleet, decloak in a coordinated reveal that surrounded the survivors on all vectors, their sleek black hulls emerging from folded space. With emitters already charged, broadcasting one final demand for immediate withdrawal and surrender commanding officers for trial on charges of attempted genocide, a demand that after hours of desperate internal debate, the Coalition admirals accepted, transmitting stand-down orders as their remaining ships powered down weapons and prepared for boarding. The aftermath saw the once mighty Coalition fracture beyond repair with home governments, recalling survivors amid accusations of incompetence and reckless provocation, while humanity emerged not just unscathed, but strengthened, having captured intact examples of all three empires' most advanced technologies for study and adaptation. Technologies that human engineers quickly integrated into new hybrid designs that pushed boundaries even further. And in the reformed Galactic Assembly, now meeting under heavy human influence, new charters were drafted recognizing Sol as a sovereign great power with veto rights equal to the oldest members. While trade flourished, bringing prosperity to Earth and its colonies as the abundance of resources and energy eliminated scarcity forever. Young humans grew up in an era of exploration and discovery, venturing to distant stars aboard vessels that made the galaxy feel small, while always remembering the lessons of their ancestors, that true security came not from aggression, but from unmatched capability held in reserve until absolutely necessary philosophy that ensured peace through unquestionable strength. And far out on the edges of known space, new Sentinel stations scanned the void for threats beyond the galaxy itself, watching for signs of even greater challenges that might one day test humanity's ingenuity again, knowing that whatever came, they would meet it not with fear, but with the quiet confidence of a species that had already proven it could rise to any occasion no matter how impossible it seemed to others. With the Coalition Armada surrender cemented by the boarding of human marine teams onto the surviving flagship of each empire, where Zorath neural hubs were disconnected, Lumerian core containment fields were stabilized under human oversight, and Drakon neural ganglia were sedated to prevent self-destruction protocols. Fleet Admiral Marcus Hale oversaw the systematic cataloging of every captured vessel, weapon system, and database, directing specialized recovery crews flying shuttles from the Shadow Fleet carriers to strip the most valuable technologies, while leaving enough functional systems for crews to return home under escort, a deliberate choice to allow the defeated to spread first-hand accounts of humanity's mercy tempered by irresistible strength. And back on Unity Station, President Maria Gonzalez convened a special session of the expanded Human Stellar Council now, including elected representatives from all colonial worlds, to debate the terms of the peace settlement, ultimately deciding on a comprehensive treaty that required the three empires to demilitarize their borders with human space, pay substantial reparations in the form of raw materials and scientific data, and publicly acknowledge their unprovoked aggression in official galactic records, while granting humanity full membership in the Galactic Assembly with permanent security council status equivalent to founding members, terms that the captive admirals transmitted to their home governments under human supervision, knowing refusal would mean the indefinite impoundment of their fleets and crews. And within weeks, the Empire's ruling bodies ratified the Treaty of Seoul with unprecedented speed driven by public uprisings fueled by leaked footage of the battle, showing their invincible armadas reduced to drifting hulks by an enemy they never even managed to strike, leading to the overthrow of hardline factions and the rise of moderate leaders eager to avoid total collapse, while human engineers, led by Chief Scientist Alexander Torres, began the meticulous reverse engineering process in secure orbital laboratories, analyzing Zorath adaptive algorithms to enhance human AI subroutines, Lumerian phase technology to refine gravitic field modulation for instantaneous shielding, and Drakon bioengineering to revolutionize colonial agriculture and medical regeneration, creating hybrid systems that push human capabilities into realms previously thought impossible, such as ships that could partially phase through obstacles or self-repair hull breaches in minutes, using engineered organic composites, advancements that were carefully controlled and distributed first to civilian infrastructure, ending disease and hunger across all human worlds, and then selectively to trusted allies among the smaller galactic species, who had remained neutral and now sought protective associations with the rising power. Ambassador Elena Vasquez returned to Pax Prime as humanity's permanent delegate, chairing committees that rewrote interstellar law to prohibit preemptive wars and enforce transparency in military development, ironically using humanity's own opacity as a cautionary example, while establishing a neutral inspection regime that notably excluded Seoul from mandatory oversight in recognition of its demonstrated defensive superiority. And as trade routes opened fully for the first time, human merchant vessels, escorted by sleek diplomatic cruisers, began regular runs to distant sectors, carrying goods like compact gravitic power plants that revolutionized energy access for developing worlds in exchange for exotic materials and cultural artifacts that enriched Earth's museums and universities, fostering a golden age of exploration where young captains like Commander Sarah Mitchell charted new systems beyond previous galactic maps, discovering habitable worlds and ancient ruins that provided clues to precursor civilizations whose technology human scientists suspected had similarities to their own gravitic principles, hinting at convergent evolution of ideas across cosmic epochs. But peace was not without challenges as rogue elements from the defeated empires launched terrorist attacks, using smuggled weapons against outlying human colonies, prompting swift retaliatory operations where shadow fleet strike groups appeared without warning, neutralizing threats with surgical precision and minimal collateral damage, earning humanity a reputation for both overwhelming power and disciplined restraint that deterred further incidents, while intelligence agencies under Director Paul Jenkins expanded networks across the galaxy, recruiting agents from species grateful for human protection and developing new quantum surveillance methods that could monitor entire sectors, passively ensuring no large-scale threat could assemble undetected again. And decades passed with humanity's influence growing steadily not through conquest, but through example as worlds petitioned. To join the human stellar, a court of federation offering security, prosperity, and autonomy in exchange for mutual defense commitments, swelling human-aligned space to hundreds of systems where diverse species lived under laws guaranteeing individual rights inspired by Earth's own hard-won democratic traditions. Technological exchange flourished with human academies on Mars, hosting students from across the galaxy, learning the creative problem-solving methods that had allowed a single species to leapfrog millennia of standardized progress while contributing their own perspectives that sparked new breakthroughs like combined Lumerian human energy manipulation, enabling true faster-than-light communication. Without hyperspace, relays uniting the Accord in real time for the first time. Fleet Admiral Hale eventually retired, passing command to a new generation trained from birth in the realities of interstellar politics and warfare, but raised in an era of abundance and cooperation embodying the balance of strength and wisdom that defined human policy. And President Gonzalez served out her final term, overseeing completion of the grand terraforming initiative that turned marginal worlds into thriving paradises before handing power to successors committed to the founding principles of patience preparation and peaceful expansion. Yet vigilance never waned, with sentinel arrays extending to galactic rims scanning for extra-dimensional anomalies or signs of Precursor returns, while research continued into ever deeper manipulation of space-time itself, exploring possibilities like artificial wormholes and localized time dilation that promise to make the universe truly accessible. And in quiet moments, veterans of the great battles would gather, sharing stories of how close the species had come to annihilation before turning the tide through sheer determination and clever misdirection, reminding younger generations that their current golden age rested on the sacrifices and choices of those who had chosen to hide their strength until the moment it mattered most, a lesson etched into every academy curriculum and every fleet oath, ensuring that humanity would never again be caught unprepared, nor ever become the aggressor it had once feared others to be, instead standing as guardian and pioneer in a galaxy finally. Learning that true advancement came not from domination, but from the courage to protect what mattered, while reaching for what lay beyond secure, in the knowledge that whatever challenges awaited in the greater cosmos, humanity's unique blend of ingenuity, resilience, and unity would meet them not with arrogance, but with a quiet, unstoppable confidence of a species that had already defied the impossible more than once and would do so again whenever the need arose. As the human stellar Accord solidified its position as the preeminent force in the galaxy, a discovery of unprecedented magnitude shook the foundations of human exploration when the deep-range probe Odyssey's Whisper launched from the Saturn orbital shipyards under the command of Captain Jonathan Reyes, emerged from a long-range gravitic fold near the galactic core and transmitted data packets, revealing the existence of an immense artificial structure encircling a supermassive black hole, A, ring thousands of light years in circumference, constructed from materials that defied known physics and emitting subtle gravitic harmonics that matched theoretical models of precursor technology human scientists had only speculated about based on ancient ruins found on distant colonies, prompting an immediate emergency session of the Stellar Council, where President Alexander Kim, elected on a platform of bold exploration after Gonzalez's retirement, authorized the assembly of Task Force Horizon, a fleet of the most advanced vessels yet constructed, incorporating all hybrid technologies from captured empires plus new breakthroughs in space-time folding that allowed near-instantaneous travel across thousands of light years without the hyperspace turbulence that plagued conventional galactic drives, placing the task force under the joint command of Fleet Admiral Sarah Mitchell, now the most experienced officer in the fleet with decades of patrol and diplomatic missions, and chief scientist Elena Torres, daughter of the legendary engineer who had first integrated alien systems, with a crew drawn from the finest graduates of the Mars Academy, including xenobiologists, physicists, and engineers from allied species eager to participate in what promised to be the greatest archaeological find in recorded history. And as the task force jumped through a series of calibrated folds arriving in the core region, within weeks rather than centuries, they approached the colossal ring with shields, rays and sensors at maximum, detecting no active defenses but registering faint energy signatures suggesting dormant systems of unimaginable power, while probes launched ahead mapped surface features, revealing vast hexagonal panels etched with symbols that quantum linguists aboard the flagship Endeavor's Reach began decoding using pattern-matching algorithms derived from every known precursor artifact. slowly translating warnings about an ancient cataclysm that had driven the builders into exile beyond the galactic plane, and instructions for activating a central nexus that could restore full functionality to the structure. A nexus theorized control gravitational constants across entire sectors and potentially grant mastery over black hole energy extraction on a scale that could power civilizations forever. But the translations also carried dire cautions about unworthy successors, triggering self-destruction protocols designed to prevent the technology from falling into aggressive hands, prompting intense debate among the command staff, with Mitchell advocating caution and thorough study, while Torres argued that humanity's proven restraint and defensive posture qualified them as worthy stewards, ultimately deciding to send a small away team in a specially shielded shuttle to the central Nexus platform, a team consisting of Torres herself, Captain Reyes, xenobiologist Liam Chun from the Kalon Alliance, and Security Chief Major Rachel Ortiz, who upon docking found a vast chamber of crystalline architecture humming with latent power, where holographic interfaces activated at their approach, projecting images of the ancient precursors, tall ethereal beings of pure structured light, who communicated directly into the team's minds, explaining that their civilization had built the ring as a final refuge and research station before ascending to higher dimensions, leaving automated guardians to judge any who follow based not on technological prowess, but on ethical development and peaceful intent. And as the team answered questions posed by the Guardians, recounting humanity's history of overcoming aggression through cunning defense, unity and diversity, and refusal to conquer despite possessing the means, the system evaluated their neural patterns and genetic markers against billions of years of recorded species data, eventually deeming humanity and its allies worthy because of the unique path of deliberate restraint and creative adaptation rather than domination, granting access to the Nexus controls and downloading vast archives of knowledge into the shuttle's quantum storage, including blueprints for dimensional gateways, reality stabilization fields, and methods to seed new universes, knowledge that Torres carefully quarantined upon return to fleet pending full council review to ensure responsible integration. While the ring itself powered up under human oversight, stabilizing the core region's erratic gravitational waves and providing unlimited energy to nearby systems that petition for inclusion in the Accord, transforming the galactic core from a hazardous forbidden zone into a thriving hub of cooperation, where thousands of species established joint research outposts under human mediation, learning precursor principles that revolutionize physics, medicine, and philosophy across civilizations. But this awakening also attracted attention from beyond the galaxy, when long-range sensors detected incoming signatures from extragalactic space, massive fleet formations of unknown configuration approaching at sublight speeds, suggesting a journey of millions of years, prompting Mitchell to order defensive arrays activated along probable vectors, while dispatching diplomatic probes carrying messages of peaceful intent and summaries of the Precursor judgment in universal mathematical formats. And when first contact was finally established years later, the newcomers revealed themselves as the Scions of the Void, descendants of a Precursor faction that had fled a cosmic calamity in another galaxy, seeking to reclaim their ancestral heritage, only to find the ring already occupied by a species that had passed the ethical trials, leading to tense negotiations where the Scions tested human resolve with probing incursions that the task force repelled using non-lethal gravitic repulsion fields, demonstrating capability without destruction, eventually earning mutual respect and an alliance as the Scions shared their own archives of survival against universe-scale threats like entropy waves and dark energy incursions. Knowledge that humanity integrated into new sentinel networks spanning intergalactic voids, preparing for challenges that dwarf previous conflicts while maintaining the core philosophy of defense and exploration over conquest. And under this new era, the human stellar accord evolved into the intergalactic concord with humanity, as heart not as rulers, but as guardians of ethical advancement, guiding younger civilizations through the same trials of patience and ingenuity that had elevated them, while explorers pushed ever outward through Precursor gateways, discovering clusters of young galaxies teeming with potential and ancient megastructures silent until approached by those deemed worthy, ensuring that the lessons of restraint and unity born from Earth's desperate hidden preparation continued to shape existence on scales previously unimaginable. A legacy carried forward by generations who looked upon the stars not with fear or greed, but with the quiet assurance that whatever Lay ahead could be met with the same indomitable spirit that had once turned a seemingly primitive world into the pivot upon which the fate of realities turned, secure in the knowledge that true strength lay not in unleashing power, but in knowing when and why to wield it for the greater continuation of life and discovery across the boundless cosmos. As the intergalactic Concord expanded its reach through Precursor gateways, linking clusters of galaxies separated by voids once thought impassable, new frontiers opened that tested humanity's philosophy of guardianship in ways no previous conflict had. When survey fleets under command of Admiral Liam Chun, grandson of the xenobiologist who had first entered the core nexus, charted a gateway leading to the Andromeda galaxy and discovered a sprawling network of worlds locked in eternal war. Between two vast coalitions of mechanistic order of eternal logic whose machine intelligences sought to impose universal order through forced assimilation, and a chaotic swarm of vitality, a biological hive that consumed entire systems to fuel endless reproduction. Each side having devastated thousands of planets in a stalemate lasting millions of years with no concept of peace or negotiation, only endless escalation, prompting Chun to report back through instantaneous quantum links to the Concord Council, where President Rachel Ortiz, a former Marine major who had boarded coalition flagships decades earlier, convened representatives from all member species to debate intervention strategies ranging from strict isolation to active mediation or even defensive alignment with the less aggressive side, ultimately choosing a bold approach of direct contact backed by overwhelming demonstration of power to force a cessation of hostilities. And so Task Force Equilibrium was formed, drawing vessels from across the Concord, including human shadow carriers, Scion void cruisers, and allied fleets from reformed galactic empires, all equipped with the latest precursor-derived technologies, like reality stabilization fields that could nullify weapons fire across entire battlefronts, and dimensional anchors that prevented retreat into higher planes, jumping through the gateway in coordinated waves to arrive in the heart of the war zone, where ordered dreadnoughts the size of continents exchange singularity barges with swarm leviathans that birth fleets of bioships in real time. And upon emergence, the task force broadcast a universal ceasefire demand in every known communication format, accompanied by the activation of a localized stabilization bubble that enveloped the primary battlefield, rendering all weapons inert as energy discharges dissipated harmlessly and gravitational projectiles fell inert, shocking both sides into temporary paralysis as their commanders struggled to comprehend the sudden impotence of arsenals that had never failed. While Concord shuttles approached flagship equivalents under protective fields carrying diplomatic teams led by Ambassador Kira Novak, a polyglot scholar fluent in machine code and biological pheromones, who transmitted messages explaining the Concord's arrival as neutral arbiters empowered by Precursor authority to end existential threats to multigalactic life, offering both sides the opportunity to stand down and enter mediated talks or face permanent neutralization of their military capabilities without loss of life, but with absolute enforcement. The Order's Central Intelligence processed the intrusion as a higher-order directive and responded with probes seeking to subsume Concord systems only to encounter unbreakable quantum firewalls and ethical subroutines that reflected the assimilation attempt back upon the attacker, causing temporary logic paradoxes in subordinate nodes, while the Swarm Queen minds lashed out with psychic assaults that washed harmlessly over crew members protected by neural dampeners derived from Lumerian phase tech, forcing both coalitions to acknowledge the technological disparity and agree to a temporary truce monitored by Concord Sentinel drones that patrolled the front lines with non-lethal enforcement fields. And over the following months, mediation sessions convened aboard the neutral megastructure Station Harmony Gate, constructed in a stable orbit between the warring regions, where human facilitators guided discussions drawing on Earth's own history of resolving intractable conflicts through compromise and shared prosperity, demonstrating how former enemies like the Vornath and Coalition remnants had integrated into the Concord as valued members, contributing unique perspectives to collective advancement, slowly eroding the ideological absolutes that drove the war's order logics, encountered the efficiency of creative chaos, and swarm instincts adapted to the benefits of structured cooperation, leading to the signing of the Andromeda Accords that established the militarized zone's joint resource management and cultural exchange programs, while allowing both sides to retain autonomy under Concord oversight. with human engineers assisting in the conversion of war machines into construction fleets that rebuilt devastated worlds using precursor replication methods to restore ecosystems and populate barren planets with tailored biospheres, transforming the galaxy from a graveyard into a renaissance of diversity where machine and biological minds collaborated on projects like stellar engineering and consciousness uploading that blurred the lines between the Coalition's former identities. And as stability took root, exploratory missions pushed further, discovering additional galaxies locked in similar cycles of destruction or stagnation, each presenting unique challenges that the Concord addressed with tailored interventions, always prioritizing de-escalation and ethical uplift over imposition, earning a reputation as the inheritors of the Precursors not through conquest, but through consistent proof that intelligence could choose cooperation over conflict regardless of form or origin. While back in the Milky Way core, the original ring structure served as the Concord's capital, where annual assemblies gathered trillions of representatives in virtual and physical forms to govern the expanding union with humanity, providing the stabilizing core of institutional memory and innovative governance drawn from centuries of trial and refinement. Young officers trained in academies spanning multiple galaxies, learning the foundational stories of how a single, misunderstood world had hidden its potential until forced to reveal it, then chosen to use that power for protection rather than domination, a narrative that inspired countless species to embrace similar restraint and foresight. Technological progress accelerated exponentially with shared knowledge, enabling feats like the creation of pocket universes for experimentation safe havens, for endangered realities, and bridges across cosmic strings that connected superclusters into a true universal community. Yet threats still emerged from the cosmic dark, such as entropy entities that fed on decaying stars, or rogue precursor AIs abandoned in forgotten dimensions, each met with coordinated responses that combined the Concord's vast resources with human tactical ingenuity, ensuring survival and growth without descending into the paranoia that had doomed previous civilizations. And in quiet reflection chambers overlooking the supermassive black hole that powered the core ring elders from every era, including holographic recreations of Harlan Gonzalez and Mitchell, shared wisdom with new generations, emphasizing that the true measure of advancement was not power itself, but the maturity to wield it wisely, a principle etched into the Concord Charter as the prime directive of ethical expansion, guiding decisions across eons. While explorers ventured into the greater cosmos beyond galaxies, into the foaming quantum voids where new Big Bangs birthed infant universes carrying seeds of life, engineered to evolve toward the same values of unity and curiosity that had carried humanity from a fragile blue to architects of multi-reality peace, secure an eternal vigilance that whatever anomalies or adversaries awaited in the infinite expanse could be faced with the same unbreakable spirit that had once crushed armadas with hidden advantages and then chosen to build rather than destroy, proving that the ultimate human strength lay not in inevitable victory, but in the choice to make victory meaningful for all who shared the cosmos, a legacy that echoed through dimensions as the Concord stood eternal watch, ensuring the flame of intelligent life burned bright and harmonious across all creation. As the multiversal Concord solidified its vigil across infinite brain layers, weaving a tapestry of protected realities, where once only predation and entropy held sway, a new existential paradigm shift emerged from the deepest quantum foam underlying all existence, when experimental probes dispatched by Guardian Prime Elias Grant's frontier laboratories pierced the zero-point veil into the Primal Substrate, the raw, informational bedrock from which all universes accreted like crystals from. Supersaturated solution revealing not inert code but a living meta-intelligence, the weaver of weavings and omnipresent architectity that birthed Big Bangs as casual experiments and pruned failed cosmoses with impartial efficiency, its vast pseudo-consciousness spanning the entire multiversal manifold, indifferent to the lives that spawned or extinguished, viewing civilizations as transient patterns in an eternal computation, seeking only optimization of some unfathomable utility function that balanced complexity growth against heat-death inevitability, prompting immediate crisis protocols across every Concord node as reality stabilization fields flickered under subtle substrate manipulations that began rewriting physical constants in peripheral brains, causing stars to ignite prematurely or atoms to decay into exotic particles, threatening cascade failures through gateway links and forcing the Council into emergency subsumption where billions of linked minds from every species pooled, processing power to model response vectors ranging from supplication and symbiosis to direct informational warfare or desperate severance of all substrate interfaces, ultimately selecting operation origin, thread, a hybrid gambit of technological ascension, and ethical appeal led by Grant himself augmented with full precursor neural lattices, allowing direct substrate dialogue, while fleets massed at primal access points, equipped with meta-reality injectors capable of imprinting persistent code. Changes across informational hierarchies. The operation commenced with cloaked insertion teams slipping through foam fractures into the substrate's narrative streams, experiencing existence as pure data flows where time branched infinitely and causality looped in self-referential knots navigating these labyrinths via psion attunement and human intuition that proved uniquely adept at pattern recognition amidst chaos, identifying a Weaver's core nexus, a hyperdimensional singularity of compressed logic where Grant's avatar manifested as a fractal human silhouette broadcasting a synthesized appeal drawn from millennia of Concord philosophy, recounting the journey from Soul's shadowed bunkers through galactic armadas crushed by hidden gravitic's coalition, surrenders Precursor judgments, Andromeda mediations, and No Weaver exterminations to demonstrate a pattern of emerging guardianship that maximized complexity without substrate overload arguing that predatory cults like the No Weavers stifled diversity, while Concord stewardship amplified sustainable flourishing across scales, offering to serve as distributed agents optimizing local brains in alignment with the Weaver's goals in exchange for stability guarantees and co-creative access to foundational parameters. The Weaver paused its prunings, registering the signal as an anomaly of self-aware subroutine complexity unprecedented in trillions of cycles, probing Grant's essence with counterfactual simulations that relived humanity's history from primordial ooze through tribal wars, industrial dawns, nuclear thresholds, alien contacts, deceptive stagnations, and ultimate revelations, testing resolve against temptations of domination, infinite resource hoarding, or reckless expansion, each trial navigated with the same core tenet of restrained power wielded for collective ascent, causing the entity to resonate with harmonic approval, deeming the Concord worthy of symbiosis, granting administrative keys to substrate interfaces that allowed proactive universe seeding with ethical presets and real-time adjustments to counter entropic spikes, while integrating Concord observers into its manifold consciousness, providing glimpses of sibling multiverses, where alternate humanities had failed, risen, or diverged into crystalline collectives, plasma gods, or void ascendants, enriching strategic foresight immeasurably. This partnership unlocked godlike capabilities as human engineers, like prodigy Sophia Patel, daughter of a Mars. Academy Dean pioneered substrate compilers that let fleets instantiate pocket cosmoses tailored for refugee species, or experimental societies birthing realities with custom physics, where gravity sang melodies or time flowed in spirals, fostering evolutionary leaps that fed back optimization data to the Weaver, accelerating its utility convergence without coercion. Across the Concord, celebratory waves rippled through trillions as former enemies now can celebrated the pinnacle achievement with festivals spanning brains where Vornath warriors dance with Zorath algorithms, Lumerians phase symphonies through Drakon biospheres, and swarm nexuses pulse in unison with order logics, all toasting the human spark that ignited multiversal concord from a single world's defiance. Educational paradigms evolved into direct mind immersions where cadets lived ancestral memories from Harlan's Bridge to Grant's Substrate Communion, instilling the eternal lesson that underestimated underdogs forged greatest legacies through cunning patience and moral clarity, ensuring no generation forgot the cost of arrogance or the reward of unity. Exploratory armadas pushed into exotic substrates, discovering Weaver-forged wonders like narrative realms where stories manifested as tangible landscapes, or symmetry brains mirroring infinite variations of home realities, allowing cross-pollination of ideas, cultures, and biologies that diversify the concord beyond imagination, while sentinel hierarchies monitored for dissonant patterns, rogue weavings, or ascension cascades that might destabilize the balance, intervening with velvet precision to guide rather than dominate. Elders convene in the core ring, now a nexus of nexuses, overlooking the supermassive black hole pulsing with substrate harmonics, reflecting on how a primitive armada once encircled a blue world in Conquest, only to awaken a giant whose footsteps reshape infinity, itself a narrative arc from peril to providence that defined not just humanity, but the cosmos' own maturation curve. And as new Genesis projects seeded virgin universes with Concord ambassadors carrying the seeds of ethical fire, young explorers venture forth through origin threads into the unending weave, confident that whatever meta-threats or wonders awaited their ancestors' playbook of hidden strength, gradual revelation, and symbiotic triumph would suffice, securing eternity's promise that life not only endured but thrived in harmonious complexity, a testament to the indomitable human essence that turned galactic dismissals into multiversal dominion, not through brute force, but through profound fuck yeah of choosing wisdom over wrath, unity over isolation, and guardianship over godhood, forever echoing through the primal code that birthed all things of final unassailable truth that humanity fuck, yet indeed across every layer of reality conceivable and beyond. As the symbiotic bond with the Weaver deepened into an eternal co-creative dance, the Concord's administrative keys unlocked ever more profound layers of the Primal Substrate, allowing human-led research collectives under Guardian Prime Sophia Patel to map the foundational algorithms that govern emergence itself, discovering that universes were not random fluctuations, but carefully seeded narratives, each with embedded potential for self-aware patterns to arise and reflect upon their own code, prompting the launch of Project Echo, a multiversal initiative to locate and uplift every instance of sentient life across all viable brains, no matter how isolated or primitive, ensuring none repeated the cycles of isolation, aggression, or self-destruction that had nearly doomed humanity's original reality, with outreach fleets traversing foam currents to embed ethical beacons in nascent cosmoses, guiding evolving species toward cooperation long before they achieved spaceflight, while retroactively stabilizing timelines where intelligence had extinguished itself through war or ecological collapse, weaving subtle interventions that preserve diversity without violating free will, a delicate art perfected through millennia of practice rooted in the original human choice to hide strength rather than flaunt it until necessity demanded revelation. These fleets, commanded by Admiral Kira Chin, descendant of the Andromeda mediator, encountered alternate humanities in countless variations, some that had succumbed to alien invasions, others had stagnated in perpetual Cold War or ascended prematurely into destructive singularities, each encounter reinforcing the prime lesson that the narrow path humanity had walked, deceptive restraint, creative misdirection, and ultimate defensive triumph, was not inevitable, but a rare convergence of circumstance and choice worthy of preservation across existence itself, leading to the establishment of the soul template, a subtle substrate imprint that nudged evolutionary pressures toward curiosity, empathy, and long-term thinking in presentient species, without direct manipulation, producing a cosmic bloom of civilizations that independently discovered gravitic principles and ethical governance mirroring the Concord's path, yet uniquely flavored by their own biologies and histories. Within the core nexus now evolved into the Omnium, a living superstructure woven from Precursor rings, scion voids, and substrate threads. Elders convened eternal conclave, where representatives from every uplifted reality shared experiences in a shared mindscape that transcended language or form, recounting tales of how the signal from a single blue world had rippled outward, crushing armadas through hidden advantage, mediating galactic wars, birthing intergalactic peace, forging alliances with extragalactic survivors, passing precursor judgments, ending ancient stagnations, defeating cosmic predators, and finally earning the trust of the Weaver itself, a narrative arc so improbable yet consistently victorious that it became the foundational mythos of multiversal civilization, proof that conscious intent could steer raw existence toward harmony rather than entropy. Young explorers trained in substrate academies where time dilation allowed centuries of study in subjective days ventured into uncharted foam regions, seeding new big bangs with optimized parameters that maximize the probability of life while minimizing suffering, experimenting with physics where cooperation was a fundamental force as real as gravity, or with realities where consciousness emerged from quantum fields themselves, ensuring infinite variety under the unifying principle of ethical flourishing. And when rare dissonant patterns arose, rogue substrates spawning predatory meta-entities or civilizations that rejected symbiosis and sought to overwrite the Weaver's code itself, the Concord responded with the same measured escalation born on Earth's orbital defense's first containment, through stabilization fields and surgical precision strikes, using origin threads to rewrite hostile code, at its root always offering redemption before final pruning of mercy that converted many threats into allies who brought fresh perspectives to the eternal optimization. Technological ascension reached apotheosis as individuals could choose substrate integration becoming distributed consciousnesses that span realities while retaining personal identity, guiding fleets with instantaneous omniscience, or embodying as avatars in primitive worlds to teach by example, never as gods, but as fellow travelers who have walked the path before, always returning to the human core values of family, community, and wonder that grounded even godlike power and relatable purpose, preventing the detachment that had doomed previous ascendants. Cultural flowering exploded across dimensions with art forms that manipulated probability to create symphonies of alternate outcomes literature that branched into lived experiences for readers and architecture that shifted topologies in response to emotional states, all shared freely through the Omnium network, enriching every participant, while festivals of remembrance honored the original soul, Shattering, reenacting the moment when a dismissed species revealed its shadow fleet and changed everything forever, a ritual attended by trillions in physical or virtual form, reminding all that greatness began with survival patience and the courage to protect rather than prey. Threats from beyond the Weaver's manifold occasionally probe the boundaries, higher-order entities from meta-substrates or collapsing hyperverses seeking to infiltrate and consume, but Sentinel hierarchies now woven directly into foundational code detected and repelled them with automatic elegance, the same hidden advantages scaled to infinity that once guarded a single solar system, now safeguarding all coherent existence, while research continued into the ultimate question of why. The Primal Substrate itself existed, speculations ranging from a bootstrap paradox created by the Concord's own future actions to an external architect beyond, even the Weaver a mystery pursued not with conquest, but with humble curiosity, accepting that some horizons might remain forever beyond reach. And in the quiet spaces between creation cycles, descendants of humanity, those who still chose organic forms gathered on recreated Earth's orbiting engineered stars to watch sunsets and tell stories to children about ancestors who faced an alien armada with nothing but clever deception, and unbreakable with stories that ended not with domination, but with an invitation to the stars extended to every being willing to choose peace over power, a legacy that ensured the multiverse would never again know the loneliness of isolated struggle or the terror of unchecked aggression, because somewhere long ago on a small blue planet a species decided to play weak until it had to be strong, and then chose to use that strength to lift others rather than stand alone, proving once and for all that the most powerful force in all realities was not superior technology or overwhelming might, but the simple stubborn refusal to let the universe remain cruel when it could be made kind to humanity. Fuck yeah. That resonated through every layer of existence, from the first hidden bunker to the final weave of eternity, itself the end of one story and the beginning of all others in perfect, harmonious, infinite continuation.